Hey there! In this video, I'll walk you through my typical process when joining a new company or taking over a new content marketing project. This applies to you if you've recently joined a new company as a content strategist, marketer, or manager, and you've been asked to create a 30, 60, 90-day plan. I'll keep it fluffy as there's a lot to cover, but as usually, I like to use frameworks and processes as much as possible to make it easier to scale up the activities later on. I will link everything below this video. Let's start with the bigger picture. In your first 90 days, you will go through 4 different phases that will help you get onboarded and make informed decisions when creating your content strategy. I will first cover the phases and then I will walk you through each of them, detailing all the activities. Generally, the first 1 or 2 weeks are used for orienting. So you will get to know the people, product, customers, the market and the competitors. You'll dive into the messaging and positioning and get an idea of the goals and KPIs of the marketing team. At the same time, you want to look at existing processes and tools. Weeks 3 to 6 are usually reserved for analyzing. You will do deep dives such as an content audit, an SEO audit. You will look at CRM data as well as product usage data. You will talk to your sales reps and account managers, and you will do interviews with your customer success colleagues. Then you will look at your ICP as well as the decision-making unit. You will look at customer journeys and run a competitor analysis to understand what type of content tends to perform better. The next phase will be dedicated to deciding what to do next. In this phase, you will work on the roadmap, you will build your target segments, and set goals and targets for the content activities. At the same time, you will work on your messaging, you will decide tactics and channels, as well as what content you need to produce. Then you will set a budget and you will work on a measurement plan. Finally, the last 2 weeks will be dedicated to acting or implementing your strategy. I advise to start with a POC and scale up from there. Now let's dive deeper into the first 2 weeks, the orientation phase. As I said, you will spend most of your time getting familiar with your environment, your colleagues, your market, competitors, your products and services. It's important to get familiar with the vision, mission, and values of your company, as well as to understand your product. I recommend to talk to colleagues from all the departments, from sales, marketing, product, customer success, just to get multiple perspectives on your product, your category, and your brand. You will also want to look at the brand archetype, the tone of voice, the brand promise and tagline, and your messaging pillars. The messaging pillars or the messaging framework is extremely important when building your content strategy because you will need to repeat those messages throughout all your content assets. Another thing to look at during the onboarding or orientation phase is the market and your existing competitors. You will want to know if you play in multiple verticals or if you only target one industry. Also, you will want to know which competitors your sales team comes across most often, and if you have existing sales data, you will want to look at closed-won deals as well. During your onboarding calls, make sure to ask about the industries that you're targeting as well as specific segments within those industries. Get familiar with the job titles that you're targeting, with the decision makers within each segment, and ask about the pain points, challenges, and benefits for each of these segments. Finally, look at your existing content. Look at the themes that you are generally writing or talking about, the channels you use for distributing content, the content formats, and the knowledge level and depth of your existing content. Let's move on to the analysis phase. During these weeks, you will dive deeper into the areas that relate to content strategy and marketing in order to get a good understanding of stakeholders and dependencies. At the end of this phase, you will have a clear understanding of your baseline measurement, as well as the areas that will require more effort and resources. So let's continue with the content audit. This is the most important step of the process in building your content strategy, as it not only shows you how much content you have, where it is stored, and how it's distributed, but it also shows you if the quality of content fits your audience needs. I will link a video below that shows the entire process I follow when doing a content audit. The next step is the SEO and social media audit. You want to know not only what content you have available, but also how you distribute it. Is your content actually ranking for the keywords you hope to be found for? And for social media, is your content engaging? And if yes, does it engage the right audience? On the SEO part, it's important to look also at technical aspects, starting from your page speeds or how fast your website actually loads, and continuing with your sitemap, your indexing, and your information architecture. You want to avoid broken links, redirect loops, as well as content that loads too slow. Next, we move to CRM data. Are you attracting the right type of leads with your content? And what percentage of leads become actual customers? Remember, the goal of content is to help drive revenue. The next focus area is the product usage data. You want to understand how your customers are using your product and whether there are friction points. You can start by analyzing the onboarding flows. What exactly happens after users sign up or request a demo? Are customers finding their way, or are they submitting a lot of requests and questions to your customer support team? The next step is to interview your sales colleagues. Here it's extremely important to understand what types of customers are the easiest to win, as well as what type of customers you usually lose. What are the reasons for winning and what are the reasons for losing, as well as what objections do they usually come across. Make sure to ask about challenges, benefits, pain points, anything that customers or prospects usually mention during sales calls, and map this information to the sales funnel. In the end, your content will need to support the sales process. So if there are questions that are more often asked during discovery calls or during demo calls, it's important to write those down and make sure you address those topics in your content. Next, you will interview your customer support team. Ask them about the most frequent requests coming from customers as well as the most often complaints. Look for patterns, and in case of repeating questions, consider creating content for your help center. Another area to dive into during this phase is the ideal customer profile or ICP as well as your personas. Depending on what strategy you plan to use, ABM or inbound, or a combination of these, the personas might be more or less relevant. However, you should still know the ICP criteria. What company size are you targeting? What industry do you go after? What regions you want to target? What job titles you should pay attention to? The seniority of your personas, and so on. Next, look at your existing customer journeys. Are there touch points with higher drop rates, or are customers moving smoothly through the sales funnel? What type of content are they consuming at each funnel stage? And is there content missing from your current strategy? Finally, during this phase, it's good to look at competitor content. Depending on your scope, you might want to focus this on blog content only, but you can also do a social media analysis, look at their SEO presence, paid advertising, and so on. Now you know enough to move to the third phase, making decisions. The next 3 to 4 weeks will be dedicated to building your actual strategy and deciding what areas to focus on. Although you can switch the order of these activities, in big lines, you will focus on building your roadmap, clarifying the target market and segments, as well as the pain points, challenges, and benefits for each segment. Then, deciding on your goals, targets, and KPIs for content, and this should be aligned with your general marketing targets. Next, you will move to your creative strategy or your message design. What types of content assets do you need? How should this look like? And so on. Once the high-level overview is ready, you will look into tactics and channels. You don't necessarily have to create blog articles if this doesn't fit your audience needs. Speaking of audience needs, it's during this phase that you will need to get clarity on your content gap. For this step, it's not enough to keep things high level. You will need to look at the exact content themes and topics that you want to own, the content formats that you plan to produce, the timeline, or when will you create each type of content, as well as the distribution plan. So what happens after you create a content asset? Along with these things, you will look into your content budget. Will you create everything in-house, or do you need to hire external writers, designers, or maybe someone to run your paid campaigns? Make sure to distribute your budget based on priorities. For example, if your main goal is to attract more traffic to the website or to generate more leads, you might want to put more budget into top and middle of the funnel content. On the other hand, if your goal is to attract more customers, you might want to give more priority to bottom of the funnel content. You are now ready to create your first POC or your first content campaign to see what works and what doesn't. So the last 2-3 weeks of your 90-day plan will be dedicated to implementing the strategy. You will develop your content for the POC, implement the proof of concept, and then analyze the results to decide how to scale up. When analyzing the results, look at what went well and what you learned from that. Which accounts were more receptive, which industries, and which company sizes. which types of content worked best for which touchpoint. Then build your scale-up plan. Create templates for faster content production, replicate the sequences that worked better, and scale first in the industry or segment that is more engaged. That's it for now. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next video.